Charlie Morley, how amazing that you could join me today. I'm excited for your keynote presentation at IASD online conference this year. I'm a huge fan of your work and research. Like yourself, I've also been a lucid dreamer since childhood, so I'm super happy to see nowadays that science is catching up to the amazing healing and transformational benefits of lucid dreaming. And I love seeing a lucid dreaming focused keynote presentation at the conference. So that's really, really exciting. Now, your presentation focuses on your research done on lucid dreaming as a treatment for PTSD. So can you tell me a little bit about what can we expect from your presentation?
Yeah, sure. So a pleasure to be here, and thank you. It's great to meet you, well, in person, online. I've been following your stuff too, and yeah, excited for this presentation and excited for the conference. I kind of wish it was in person this time because I'd love to meet everyone face to face, but I guess we'll be online, and it can reach so many more people when it's online too. So I'm still very excited. Yeah, so the presentation it's kind of gonna I've just done a TED talk on this. So I did a TED talk on the study which actually has been blacklisted. So it's unsearchable and Googleable. Like you can't find it. You can only find it on the link, which is on my website if you want to check that out. And the reason I mention that is because this was the level of controversy around the study. TED haven't banned it, but they blacklisted it because they are questioning the scientific validity here. Apparently, a guy speaking for 13 minutes about a scientific study wasn't scientific enough. So who knows? Watch this space. Anyway, we're in appeal. So if that was 13 minutes, this is going to be a much longer extended version of it where I'll be able to really go into the nuts and bolts of what we did. But essentially, I had been working with military veterans and other traumatized populations for the last 10 years or so. And I always offer free workshops to military veterans and serving military, and we get funding from elsewhere, but I make sure the workshops are free for the participants. So I had some experience there. And as you know, there's a long history of using lucid dreaming to help treat nightmares. That's very well established. If you can train someone to become lucid in a recurring nightmare and know, hey, I'm not really back in Iraq, I'm simply dreaming I'm back in Iraq, this has a powerful deconditioning effect on both the psychology and the brain of the person. Actually, we can see kind of brain changes when someone is able to become lucid and turn to face that which they were afraid of in recurring nightmares. So that's well established. So I get this call from a guy called Garrett Yunt from the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, in San Francisco, I believe they're based. And I assumed he was going to ask, can we do another study looking at lucid dreaming for nightmare treatment? But when I read the email, actually what he was saying is, can we use lucid dreaming to treat PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which has nightmares as part of it? But he was actually talking about, could lucid dreaming treat waking state symptoms of trauma, like flashbacks, panic attacks, anxiety, depression? Now that I wasn't aware of. I'd seen some studies that seemed to hint that it's a possibility, but what he wanted to do is really have that as our main kind of data collection point. So what we did is we gathered a group of people. I think it's 55 people in the pilot study. We've since done a 100-person randomized control, and we managed to replicate results. But I'll talk about the pilot because then you can see the replication in the second study. So we had 55 people. All of whom had to have chronic PTSD to get on the program. So you had to have quite a high PTSD score, which sounds quite arbitrary, but it's basically like a medical model of diagnosing how traumatized someone is at the current moment. So to get onto the study, you had quite a high PTSD score. And our aim was to have 1 week with this group of people who are suffering with trauma, teach them lucid dreaming, but specifically how to become lucid in their recurring nightmares, or how to become lucid and then intentionally face the source of their nightmares or trauma, whatever that was. And then at the end of the week, we'd check their PTSD score again. So we'd have like a really clear data point. After practicing lucid dreaming for a week, were people less traumatized, the same level of traumatized, or more traumatized? And we got some pretty crazy results. I mean, I can see why, TED have questioned it. We found that by the end of the week, the average PTSD score had dropped so low, it was actually beneath the PTSD threshold. So not only had these people had a reduction in their level of trauma, the reduction was so great, they were no longer classified as having PTSD. And this was the majority, actually 85% of participants by the end of the 1 week lucid dreaming intervention no longer were diagnosed as having PTSD from a medical point of view, which is insane. Like
Yeah.
the scientists, when they first got the data, they like double checked. Then they triple checked because they thought there was a problem with data collection. Then they were like, okay, the data seems to be sound, but dude, this maybe something weird happened. Maybe it was some, a group dynamic that you created, and maybe everyone just suddenly feels they're not traumatized after the week, but they are. So we need to wait another month. So we'll do a 1 month follow up. So then no contact with them at all, no more lucid dream training. A month later, they take the same tests, and they're actually still the reduction has increased, actually 1 point below. So it seemed to have some lasting effect. So this is kind of crazy. I mean, the thing is, though, and this is the interesting point about the study, and this is one point that I want to make clear, we cannot actually be sure that it was the lucid dreams that led to the reduction in trauma. Because, of course, people weren't in a brain scanner at the time. All we know is at the start of the week, they would this level of trauma, the end of the week, this level of trauma. And there was a correlation between the people who not only became lucid, but those who had what class as a healing lucid dream. So in the lucid dream, they intentionally turned to face and embrace their fear or their source of their nightmare. So we can't actually say it was the lucid dreams, but we can say it was lucid dreaming. So the act of learning to lucid dream and engaging the practice led to these drops in trauma, which I think is possibly even more optimistic, because some of the kind of I wouldn't say the haters, but like some of the naysayers have been like, yeah, but lucid dreaming is really hard to master, right? How are you going to teach people to get lucid in a week? And I was like, well, this was an intense week. But what we've shown here is it's not just the lucid dreams that can help reduce trauma, but just learning to lucid dream itself. Because PTSD is such a disempowering experience that when counterbalanced with the hugely empowering experience of even just learning to remember your dreams, spotting your dream signs, seeing your hand change for the first time in a pre-lucid dream, all that stuff also helps, we believe, to reduce trauma. Perhaps not just the actual lucid dream itself, although, of course, that was the big kind of cherry on top that led to these big drops. So yeah, that's the study I'll be talking about. That's the pilot. And then basically we got
Nice.
funding to do 100-person randomized control, and we replicated results again.
That is so exciting. So have you already done the replicated results, or is that in progress?
No, that's done. And that got
It's
published
done.
last month. So
Oh,
once it
awesome.
got published, now I'm in appeal with TED. Because I mean, to their service, their main kind of beef with the talk was the punchline of my whole talk was, and then we did it again in a randomized control, and that wasn't published yet. But now it has been published and is
Yeah.
online. Hopefully, they will accept that and then remove the blacklisting of the talk. We'll see.
Yes, hopefully, because this is amazing work that you've been doing, and it really points to the power of lucid dreaming as a practice. And what I love about this is, even though you're contributing to the literature and the scientific research which we need, lucid dreaming is something that anybody can learn. Although maybe it's harder for some people than others, some people might be more natural. This is something you can do for free. So somebody that's experiencing
Yes.
trauma at home, or they have things that they're working through, emotional blockages, they can get a lot out of your presentation, not only from seeing the data to back it up, but from learning, that they can do it themselves. So what kind of techniques did were the participants using during these workshops, and how do you think that it helped?
Yeah, we were using all the kind of classic techniques, lucid dreaming techniques. The main one we kind of pulled away from were things like big kind of wake back to bed practices, because a lot of the people, because they were currently traumatized, a lot of the people had very poor sleep already, only averaging maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep a night. So we need to make sure they were extending those REM periods. But yeah, everything from dream diaries to dream recall and dream signs and a form of reality checking, falling asleep consciously, mild technique, all the classics. I guess just the one we were kind of more averse to was the big wake back to beds in case people couldn't get back to sleep. But yeah, just the classic lucid dreaming practice. But the main one we did was the main practice that I teach, that I call dream planning, which is like a 3-step, just deciding what you want to do in your lucid dream, basically. But I've developed a kind of art therapy version of it, where you make like a vision board of the lucid dream you want to have, with pictures and words and collages and stuff like that. So that you've got this like really strong imprint. Like if you get lucid tonight or in 1 week or in 1 month, you know exactly what you were doing. There's not that sense, as in lucid dreams, like, I'm lucid. Oh shit, what do I do? God, there's so many cool things I
Yeah.
could do. And then boom, you've woken up. Oh, I forgot to do something. So we made sure that everyone was super, super clear that they had a very strong intention dream plan. And I think that in itself already sets the healing in action,
Yeah.
even before you have the lucid dream, perhaps.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's such a powerful tool. I teach that to my students as well. I
Oh,
have like
great.
a list of, like, all these hundreds of things you can do in a lucid dream because,
Yes,
even if it's not just for healing, having that plan really helps to stay in the dream and be prepared, and it helps with the incubation process, I think, too, really setting it in your head that I will be lucid and this is
precisely.
what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's a stabilization technique too. Like when
Mhm.
I first started teaching like 15 years ago, I would teach the kind of classic thing that when you first get lucid, just stabilize, look around, don't do anything too much, stay in the dream. But often people would do that and then they'd wake up before they'd had to do their dream plan. So now I realize that the dream plan itself, like engaging your dream plan, like as soon as you're lucid, I'm lucid, boom, inner child, come to me, or a big thing. It's like it's as if the dream is like a fire that needs to be fueled. And if you get lucid and you're like, I'm lucid, okay. It's like the fire of the dream kind of whittles out. Whereas if you get lucid and you're like, I want to heal my trauma, it's like putting a big log onto the fire. It really sparks up the dream and actually keeps you in there for longer. So that's a big change to how I used to teach for now. I'm like, go big. You only need one lucid dream to change your life. So if you get lucid tonight, don't warm up. Don't be like, oh, it's my first lucid dream. I should take it easy. Like, go for it. Meet God. Transform into Buddha. Like, explore the emptiness of the universe. Like, let your dreamer know I'm not a tourist. I'm a traveler. Like, I'm here.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really good advice as well. And I would love to see how some of these people, like if you were to follow them up in a longitudinal study to
I'd
see if they
love to
still
do
are
that.
having lucid dreams. I know funding is probably a big thing, but what do you think where is this going in the future? How can we get more funding for this type of research? And why do you think people are so hesitant to just accept this despite all of this indisputable evidence that we have?
A good point. I mean, you've got this thing that's free, non-invasive, non-medical, non-addictive. You do it in your sleep. It literally sounds too good to be true. So I think there's that. Also, possibly the fact that it is non-medical and non-addictive. I'll leave that there, but there could be some parties involved who have a vested interest in things being medical and addictive. Um, I think it's new relatively. I mean, I've got a friend who's now a professor of psychology at Greenwich Uni, and he's my age. And I'm 41, right? But I still feel young. I still feel like a young person. Shit, I'm like middle aged now, but I still feel young. And I'm like, I remember when he told me, I was like, what do you mean? You can't be professor. You're like my age. And he was like, yeah, like a normal age for a professor, dude. And I realized that this is how change happens. To quote Alan Wallace, the brilliant Buddhist Lama, he said, science will change when old white men die. Oh, that was a big one. I was like,
Yeah.
oi, that's everything there, man. So it's generational. I mean, how old are you? You're much younger than me.
I'm 29, so yeah, I'm not,
Perfect.
you know.
No, there's a big difference between 29 and 41. Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
sure, I'm sure.
So I think my generation, kind of elderly millennials, are like starting to push it because they've grown up with the like psychedelic therapeutic revolution. They've grown up with lucid dreaming being normal, stuff like that. I think your generation will be the ones when you guys move into these big seats of power, basically the professorships, the research grant people, you know, when you guys step into middle age, I think that's when it'll happen. So I think it's a generational shift that's needed because your generation's growing up, like everyone knows what a lucid dream is. Of course, you know what a lucid dream is. Of course, it's legit. Whereas my generation, most people do, but some people are skeptical. The Gen Xers, some people know, but many are skeptical. And then I don't know, the generation above, like it seems madness that you can do this to many of
Yeah.
them.
I love the foundation work that you've helped lay, and all the other pioneers that are helping this paradigm shift because you know what, you're right. I think science is changing, and although we need science, but a true scientist takes data and sees how things are evolving. And to understand consciousness, I think we have to step away from materialism a little bit. So I think lucid dreaming is a stepping stone to all this other, research about consciousness that we're going to start to get into. So I'm really excited for that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think one thing we can use, maybe not as I'm not linking these directly, but I think kind of metaphorically there's a link here, is the fact that no one is freaking out about the fact that UFOs are now legit. Like you've got the American
I'm like, oh,
government
I
saying,
knew
yep,
that
they're,
already.
like they're real. Like I tried to tell my dad this the other day, right? And he was like, well, but it's not, they're not real. And I was like, no, no, dad,
It's
it's
like
real. It's like
Truman.
legit.
Like,
And
people
he's like,
aren't.
he went, why isn't it on the news? And I thought, that's it. That's in the comment. Why isn't it in the good point, dad? Why isn't it
Mhm.
in the news that you watch? You mean, why isn't it the
Right.
news that you watch? Because I mean, this is huge, right? That like, that this is real. The government have admitted it. They're not saying it's, they haven't actually used the word kind of alien intelligent yet, but we're seeing non-human intelligence used, stuff like that. So I think these paradigm shifts, they happen drip by drip, and then there'll suddenly be some cultural moment. And I think it's coming probably this year or next year where the mainstream will go, oh wow, the kind of the alien intelligence is here. And I think it'll be like that with lucid dreaming. At the moment, we're in this drip, like, why isn't it on the news? Why don't people know about this? And then in a few years' time, there'll be some big cultural shift. And then we'll be going, dude, we've known this for like the last decade. Why are you so slow to catch up? But I think this is how it works.
Definitely. Yeah. I tell people all the time, like, the evidence is there. What do you mean? The
Yeah.
science is there. You're just not
Yeah.
looking for it. Maybe it's not on CNN or mainstream, but it is there, And that's why these conferences are so, so important. And I know you do a lot of work as well with military veterans and those types of trauma survivors. How do you see lucid dreaming like being integrated more mainstream into like therapy and mental health, practitioners using it in their practice? How do you see like the medical field starting to accept it as a therapy?
Yeah, so I think it is changing. So again, this in a couple of months in May, I'll be training another 25 therapists. No, 20 of them are therapists, five are wild cards, but another 20 therapists will go through my facilitator training program, which is like a 6-month, 100-hour training program for therapists to learn how to share lucid dreaming with their clients. So there are another 25 from last year and 20 from the year before. So it's not hundreds, but it's getting there. We can say, there are dozens of people now, at least who work with me, who are now able to bring this stuff into their to their clients, and they're running workshops, they're giving talks at medical conferences and stuff. So I think that's shifting. And then next year, 2026, I'm doing the first, in the UK anyway, the first postgraduate diploma in lucid dreaming with Karuna Dartmoor, which is like a well-established psychotherapeutic institute. So I think that's going to be a big deal, at least in the UK. They're like, whoa, you can get an academic like post-grad diploma in lucid dreaming just for therapists. Like, that'll be a big shift too. So I think that will help, working with academic institutions, again, starting to see the shift occurring. And also when it works, the more therapists that start to use this stuff and see like clinically significant results with their clients, that's when people will start to do it, because we want to be good at what we do. And if enough therapists here, actually lucid, you got a client with nightmares or trauma, lucid dreaming is really good for that. So learn lucid dreaming, learn how to share lucid dreaming, and you can be better at your therapeutic discipline. I think there's that too. It's like once we start to see results from the clients, it'll be kind of an upward spiral effect. So I think it's happening, but again, it's generational change. All I can say is I hope that by the time I enter the bardo, hopefully lucidly, this will be mainstream. People will know about this, and people will be using it to benefit themselves and others.
Oh, I'm sure. I think it's going to start to happen quicker, and we're going to see so much change. I mean, it's already happening, which I love. So that's wonderful. I mean, the work you do is so important. And the last thing I wanted to ask you, just kind of shifting gears a little bit, is maybe if you're willing to share like a personal dream experience that you've had, maybe a lucid dream that really stuck out to you, or even one of your earliest lucid dreams, or anything that comes to mind.
Yeah. Oh, so many.
I know
It's
it's
like
hard to
asking a
pick.
chef. It's like asking a chef, like, "What's your best meal?" You're like, "Whoa,
I
wow."
know. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go for one I shared just yesterday with a friend, kind of in my head, and it's funny and it's nice. So I realized this was in lockdown, so I guess like 4 years ago or something, that I had never asked the lucid dream, "What is the meaning of life?" Like a classic thing, right? What is the meaning of life? Like, why have I never asked that? And for people listening, the cool thing about lucid dreaming is you can ask big questions. So you can become lucid and like call out, what career path should I take? Or like, is this relationship going to serve my higher self? You can ask these questions and you get answers. And some people are like, whoa, legit, that answer was from God. Definitely, that was like a channel answer. And I'm like, okay, maybe, who knows? I think possibly the wisdom that you encounter in a lucid dream is so huge compared to the wisdom you have access to in the waking state that were you to meet it, you would call it God, because there would be no other reference point for the huge uh, force of wisdom that resides in the unconscious mind, that we would call it God. And in fact, it is God, because that is God. We are God. I know it's kind of maybe a sacrilegious thing to say, but this is really what I believe. And I think lucid dreaming gives you a little taste of that. Anyway, I'm not sure I met God in this one, but I became lucid and I called out, what's the meaning of life? Show me the meaning. Tell me, what is the meaning of life? I was for tell me, not show me. And then like in the sky, these like words start to appear. And I'm like, whoa, it's like, it's going to tell me in words, like letters start to appear. Then in the sky, it says the meaning of life is, and I'm like, oh, what's it going to say? It says, so much of life is unimportant. Don't sweat the small stuff. And I was like, that's it. And then I read it and like nothing happened. And I read it again. And this like overwhelming sense of relief like filled my body in the dream. I was like, so much of life is unimportant. So much bullshit that I worry about caring what people think about me, what I think about, and all this stuff started to come to. It wasn't instant. It's really interesting. It was as if it was like understanding a joke in the dream. Like when I first read it, I didn't get it. And then I read it a second time and boom, something clicked. And I was like, fuck, so much of life is unimportant. Don't sweat the small stuff. You know, what matters? Kindness, love, connection. Pretty much everything else can fall to the wayside. You know, kindness, love, connection. That was the message that came through. And I thought that was a cool one because it's so, everyone can do that and everyone will get a different answer. And of course, is the answer true? Who knows? What is truth? But at that time, 4 years ago, when I asked that question, that was what my dreamer gave back to me. So much of life is unimportant. Don't sweat the small stuff. Concentrate on love, connection, and kindness. So I
That
think
is
that's a
so
cool message.
powerful. Yeah, I love that, and I'm sure it's exactly what you needed at the moment since dreams are such
Exactly.
an individual, tool. I think that's great, and it's funny that you mentioned that. I'll share a quick story too because I've asked
Yeah.
that same question in my lucid dream a few times,
Oh, what did you
the
get?
meaning of life, and I got something kinda similar, but in more of a funny way. So I did this in 3 separate dreams. The first time, I got, like, one-word answers. I got unity and creativity. And then the third
Mm,
time, I was like, "I want more, like, that's cool and all, but, like, I need more." Like, I wasn't happy with that. So I asked this lady in the dream. I was lucid, and I'm like, "What's the meaning of life?" And she goes, "We're all just one big fake dream simultaneously being dreamed by the bigger real dream." And I was like, "What does that mean? What's the real dream?" And she goes, "Some people call it God." And then I ask her, "What's the fake dream?" And she's like, "I don't know." And then I'm like, "Me neither." And we kind of just laugh and skip away. So it's kind of getting to the same thing of like, it's deep, but it's also not that deep. So just like laugh and don't be so serious. And that's kind of like the message feeling I had in the dream. We just like
yeah.
laughed it off. And it's just funny because it's like you can get these big, profound things, but it's also kind of basic and just, fun. So it's
And
funny.
and also that is pretty profound.
It
You were
is.
told like you're in this like matrix like dream. It's a kind of a Buddhist view, like this kind of
Yeah.
dreamlike illusion that is being dreamt by the bigger dream, which we would call God if we were to meet it, but is in fact the kind of universe itself dreaming itself into existence. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it
Like,
is, and then it kind of goes along with the unity and creative expression answer that I
yeah,
first got, so I'm like, "Wow, this is amazing," and I was really happy with that answer, but it's funny because sometimes I tell that story and it just sounds silly because the whole message of the dream was, "It's really not that important anyway, just have fun."
true. Yeah, it's a dream, right? So let's just be as lucid as we can.
Exactly, yes, and that's just an amazing thing that people can do in their lucid dream amongst all the amazing things to do in lucid dreams. When you get lucid nowadays, like, what's your current frequency? Like, do you have a practice yourself?
Yeah, so like at the moment, really the last kind of year or so, I guess since I was in training for the study that you did, the dream yoga study at Northwestern, because I know they wanted like full on like classic Tibetan dream yoga techniques for my bit in the study, I got really back into the Tibetan dream yoga stuff, which is kind of where I started, right, in my kind of path. But doing the kind of falling asleep, imagining you're the deity, and doing all the chakra stuff and the mantra recitation and stuff like that. And off the back of that, the dream plans became a lot of the Tibetan Buddhist practices of visiting the different realms of existence and deity self manifestation, where you basically like turn yourself into the Buddhas and stuff like that. And I'm still really on that. Like, that's my theme at the moment because I've got this new workshop, and hopefully a book will come out of the workshop called A Dharma Dummy's Guide to Dream Yoga. So, trying to present a demystified, but not demysticalified, like keep the mysticism of it but without the mystery of it, of the dream yoga practices, because some of the Tibetan dream yoga practices can only be practiced like if you've taken refuge, if you've done this certain retreat, if you've got these certain empowerments. True, but there are many that aren't. And I think sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater in the kind of Buddhisty scene, thinking, oh, you just can't do any dream yoga practices until you're on retreat. Actually, there are many you can do. And there are some you can do even if you're not a Buddhist. So in the workshop and the book, I really want to try and find those practices and offer them to people. So anyway, that's my kind of theme at the moment, is doing what's called like the pure realm stuff, which is kind of nuts. You become lucid and you try and leave the lucid dream or transform the lucid dream into this pure like nirvanic realm of existence. Now, whether you're actually going to these nirvanic realms or whether you're transforming the mind into what it already is, which is a nirvanic realm, who knows? But they're very intense experiences when it works. Very intense experiences.
That's so exciting. We will definitely be keeping up with your progress and with all your studies and your research. So the conference is in June, so we'll definitely see you there on Zoom. And
Great.
yeah, it's been wonderful chatting with you. I really appreciate you taking time just to talk a little bit about what you do. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.